Hello, I'm Lieutenant Garrett Kimball, Boating Education Coordinator with the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries Law Enforcement Division. On the 4th of July in 2020, our wildlife agents responded to a two-vessel boating incident that resulted in a fatality and serious bodily injury. A thorough investigation was completed, and the operator of one of the vessels was found to be intoxicated at the time of the incident. That operator was arrested and charged accordingly. The following video highlights some of the details of that case from the victim's perspective.
I have one sister, which is Audrey. She's 8 years older than me, so she was very much like a second mom to me growing up. My mom has 6 brothers and sisters, so we have a large family, many cousins, and growing up, Audrey was closer to age to all our cousins. I was kind of the lone wolf growing up because no one was really close to my age, but we always were close, always had family gatherings, and with my mom being Italian, we always had Sunday dinners with family, and my sister really enjoyed all that. She had a lot of personality also, so when she walked through the room, everyone knew she was there, and she was very loud. A firecracker. Definitely a firecracker.
She was loyal to her friends and family. If we was ever in trouble or if we ever needed anything, we can call her up and she'll be there in a drop of a hat with no questions asked.
She was a nurse, so she helped actually a lot of terminal cancer patients towards their end of care, and so it takes a special person to do that. But she was an awesome nurse. She truly showed up for patients. She said she was going to get something done, she got it done, and they would actually seek her out if they wanted something specific to be done, because they knew that she said she was going to do it, it was going to be taken care of. She really didn't know a stranger, of all ages, all backgrounds, she truly was a big part of our community, so when she passed, it significantly affected our community. It significantly did. So Audrey and her boyfriend Brock had been working on fixing up Brock's boat, getting it all nice and fixed up the seats and all these things. So they were looking to go out on the water with multiple people, and it just so happened that it was near 4th of July, and Audrey had previously gone to a fireworks show out on the water in Bayou Gauche during the 4th of July years before. And she said, hey, why don't we all go out for the fireworks this year? And so we all planned on going.
It was Brock, his 2 kids, myself, Caitlin, and Audrey. We are riding around, tubing. We go hang out at a little spot to jump in the water and swim. Then we head to Audrey's friend of like 30 years camp that she has, and we just hung out there. And then we went to the fireworks show. As we're watching the fireworks show, we were having a good time. We're listening to music. As soon as it's over, we start heading back to the boat launch. And out of nowhere, a boat crashed into us.
Didn't even see it coming.
It was a head-on collision. He was driving on the wrong side of the waterway. He did not have his lights on. He also, instead of turning right to avoid a collision, he also turned left right into us. So at the moment that we turned right, he turned left, and that caused a collision head-on to us. The boat crashed in the front where Brock's daughter, Dakota, was sitting. She was ejected out of the boat. I was also hit from the side with a leg injury and multiple broken ribs, and I was also ejected in the water. And then Audrey, she was also ejected out of the boat with multiple injuries on her pelvis, her ribs, and her back.
And myself, Braxton, which is Brock's son, and Brock were still in the boat, but Braxton landed face forward into the bow. And when I got up from, falling into the boat, I actually thought Braxton was dead. I did.
I was on that side, and my dad was to the far side of the boat driving with Miss Audrey on his left side on an ice chest in the back. And I flew all the way from there up to the bow of the boat and landed right here on the center somewhere. I hit my head really hard. I was unconscious for a while, so I'm thankful that I didn't fly out the boat. I probably would have drowned.
And I went to him first and touched him, and he moaned, so I knew that he was breathing. And so right at that time, that's when Brock came to and stood up and was yelling and he was panicking, and I told him to go to the bow with Braxton, and I went to the back of the boat by the motor, and I said, we're missing people, we have to find them. And I started calling out, trying to find my family in the water. I could hear Dakota on the water, and I had to ask her to stop yelling so that I can hear for other people. Could not find Blake. Someone yelled out that they found Audrey floating in the water face down.
While I was in the water, and I came out the water after being submerged for who knows how long, the only thing I could see was an ice chest. And I knew that I had to get to that ice chest. And if I didn't get to that ice chest, I wasn't ever gonna get out of that water alive. And so as soon as I got up and caught my bearing, I grabbed the ice chest and held on to it for as long as I could. I went to swim, and as soon as I went to kick my legs, I could just feel my left leg just flapping, like I had no control over it. I knew something was wrong. And so when I was holding on to the ice chest, another boat came up to us.
Another boat had actually found Audrey floating face down in the water, and they went to pick her up, and she made a noise. They could tell she was hurt, so they knew not to lift her out of the water, not knowing what her injuries were, but they just held her up to where she wasn't taking on water. At that point, I yelled out to them that I knew CPR if they felt like she needed CPR, and they said, no, she's breathing, but it's shallow. She's breathing, she's not responsive, but she is breathing. And so at that point in time, the Bayou Gauche Fire Rescue boat actually pulled up. They were out there for the fireworks show. They started loading us all into the boat. At that point, we realized that Braxton had no idea where we were, what happened, pretty much did not know his own name, so it was evident that he had some type of head injury or head trauma or severe concussion.
And then I remember waking up about 2 to 3 weeks later in the living room of my house and had a complete void of memory of anything that had happened in that time frame. And still to this day, no matter, I've sat in my room so many nights and stayed up all night trying to remember what happened. Not that I want to, but I want to be able to grieve with my family.
With my medical background, I started to assess as soon as we all got on the boat and that I can see everyone. Dakota was stable, obviously, injuries. Brock was stable, I was stable. Audrey and Blake is where I focused my attention at that point in time. I think Blake at that point realized how bad Audrey was because I was pretty much slapping her in the face trying to keep her awake. She was going into shock. So Blake grabbed my hand just to let me know he was okay. While I basically treated my sister as best as I could. She didn't have any apparent injuries that I could see, like no severely broken legs or anything, but it was obvious that she had some type of injury internally. When we got to the boat launch, they were trying to get us all loaded off the boat. It's a very small dock. Audrey definitely needed to be life flighted out. And so the EMT team had Blake, Audrey, and Braxton all airlifted out. Myself and Dakota got in an ambulance and went to a different hospital. And actually at the dock, I could see Brock like not knowing where he should be. And I told him, I'll stay with Dakota, you go with Braxton and Audrey to the hospital. And so I just like told him where he should be in that moment in time because he was kind of panicking. Understandably, both his children and his girlfriend were injured. So our crash happened on July 4th, and she passed away on July 7th. She actually underwent surgery to repair her fractured pelvis. So Blake and Audrey often had surgery at the same time, in that beginning time frame. So Blake actually just went in for extensive surgery that was going to take several hours to repair his leg. And at the same time, Audrey was just getting back from getting surgical procedures done. And so she was in her room and they were gonna do a chest tube because she was holding on to fluid around her lungs. And Blake was also gonna be getting a chest tube in his surgery. And so I was waiting in Blake's room for them to bring him down because the surgery was close to being done. And then my mom called me and said, you have to come up to the floor. And so I knew that something bad had happened. So at that point, I ran up to our floor. And when I got up there, I was met by many nurses, many staff. And my mom told me that she had passed and I collapsed to the floor. I had to be picked up off the floor. Actually, right after our boat crash, I found out I was pregnant for Blakeland. So that was it was actually a week after Audrey passed away. I found out I was pregnant for Blakeland. He was still in the hospital. So it was like, this is crazy timing for everything.
You know, our kids won't know their Aunt Audrey, and that was one of the first things that really hit me, was that, especially finding out that Blakeland was a girl, was that she won't have such a strong woman figure, or one less strong woman figure in her life.
Definitely a loss that can't be replaced.
I mean, I actually grew up out here, so I just grew up about a mile and a half, 2 miles down the road. So I lived out here, man, jumping off the wharf and everything. So coming back out here, I guess that's not the memory I associate with being out here anymore. I guess I compartmentalized maybe.
Which for me, I never came back here, so this is my first time. It's a little uncomfortable. This is my first time back on the boat at all. I said I would never be back on a boat, but here I am, so this is good. This is good. Definitely a little emotional, kind of suppressed emotions, you know, but kind of like remembering parts of that crash. So maybe a little bit of a flashbacks.
Typically when we stop somebody and we're checking them for impairment or looking for signs of alcohol or something like that, you know, everybody automatically assumes we're out there to ruin their day on the water. But the truth of the matter is that we're trying to make sure that one person's decisions aren't compromising the safety for everybody, because we want everybody to enjoy themselves out on the water. And, you know, God forbid a decision someone makes as far as drinking too much, becoming impaired, injure somebody else or potentially kill somebody else on the water, and then you have somebody that's not making it home to their loved ones at the end of the night because of one person's decisions. So it's a serious matter. We want everybody out on the water enjoying themselves, but we want them to be safe. So, you know, a DWI on the water is no different than a DWI on the land, and we do everything we can to enforce that.
The operator that was found to be intoxicated was convicted of vehicular homicide, 4 counts of first-degree vehicular negligent injury, and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Our enforcement agents work diligently to apprehend impaired boat operators on the waterways of this state. We also work with many other law enforcement agencies during our nationwide Operation Dry Water campaign during the 4th of July weekend. This campaign is organized by the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators. Its mission is to raise awareness about the dangers of boating under the influence. Thank you for watching this video, and we hope that it makes you a more responsible boater that avoids boating under the influence.